started. Thank you for joining us for this session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. The K-12 BIT Series is a training initiative to help you augment your internal training efforts. We're harnessing the power of our community of K-12 Blackboard schools. BITS will share top strategies and pedagogy for both increasing teacher efficiency and improving learning outcomes. K-12 BITS is free and easy to participate, and it's available to teachers, academic leaders, and administrators, and certainly not exclusive to just K-12 institutions. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Blackboard's K-12 Teaching and Learning Products, and I'll be serving as the moderator for this series. Thanks also to Misty Cobb, our Senior Solutions Engineer, and Colleen Smith from our K-12 Marketing team, who will be helping to answer questions today in the chat. Please don't hesitate to use the chat throughout the presentation. We'll funnel in questions to David as he presents, and we'll be sure your questions are answered. Misty and Colleen will be joining me for this series this spring, which actually concludes with the session today. So we're always open to new ideas for topics for the series that we're going to start back in the fall. So please let us know if you have an idea for a topic or are interested in presenting for a future session. Just email me at katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. Each webinar in this series has been recorded, as will today's session. You can look for the Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series playlist on the Blackboard YouTube channel and the K-12 Innovative Teaching Series playlist. After today's session, you'll receive a recording and presentation slides in a few days. You'll also receive an invitation to participate in a professional learning community online and course sites. It's designated to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So please be sure to accept that invitation and participate in the new online PLC. We're very pleased to introduce today's presenter, David Hamman. He's going to lead us in a presentation called A Perfect Match, Blackboard in the Flipped Classroom. David serves as the Science Department Chair and the Honors and AP Chemistry Teacher at Medina High School in Ohio. He's been teaching for 21 years and the last 13 at Medina. He's a member of the Medina City School District Technology Committee. In 2009, he was a member of the pioneer group that implemented Blackboard throughout the district. He has fully implemented the flipped classroom learning model in his chemistry classes. He's presented at various technology conferences across the state, and in last November, he also presented at the Blackboard Never Stop Learning Tour in Cleveland, Ohio. So we're very pleased to introduce David, and we're going to pass it over to him for his presentation. So thanks, everyone, for joining today. We're excited for this topic, especially today as it's Flipped Learning Day. So I'm going to hand it to David, and again, Colleen, Misty, and I will be watching the chat, so don't hesitate to pose questions there. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Katie. Definitely want to welcome everybody today. Everybody's taking time out of their summer for some professional development as educators. We end up doing that a lot. I do want to give a special thanks to Colleen and Katie for kind of helping me set this up, working through some of my questions and just making this as smooth as I know it will be. And then, of course, finally thanking Blackboard for the opportunity to present. Been very fortunate now to use Blackboard since 2009. And there's always more things that we're able to do, and it's continually expanding. I hope today, you can take a little information away from what I talk about, help you be, a better teacher, maybe incorporate maybe a little more flipped learning into your classroom, and then, of course, obviously how to better use Blackboard in your courses. And at the end, of course, I'll leave a little time for some Q&A, or again, as Katie said earlier, if you've got a question in the middle, we can kind of talk about it if something you'd like me to explain a little bit more. So getting started here, as Katie said, I've at Medina High School for a while, and I've been a District Technology Committee member since I got here in 2001. And since that time, we've really done a lot in our district, and so I've been very fortunate to be a part of it. I've seen over the years how technology has changed in schools. I come from a family of teachers, my grandfather and dad taught for 38, 39 years. I actually remember using the blue mimeograph machines, helping my dad scan those through, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I thought it was this toy until I really realized my dad was making me work. So we've gone a long way from those blue mimeograph papers to Blackboard and other things. I've really been through this process paperless since about 2002. Been very fortunate at Medina. We had a new school. We had our own web servers. We had smart boards in the science classroom. And I actually started making recordings of some of my lessons using the Smartboard software. And I was really using it just for absences, whether it was I knew I was going to be gone a day, or I knew a student was missing several days, and it was kind of one of those after-the-fact type of situations. But it was a great opportunity because, again, Medina had these resources, and we were very fortunate to use some of those things. What I didn't really realize was that I was actually moving to this concept of flipped learning. Back in 2005, 2006, I was probably working that way, but our district decided to go to an outside web service. It was the worst thing ever. If you can imagine, those of you that use websites and upload information, it was the clunkiest, most unintuitive program probably ever created, or at least I think ever created. We were truly lost. I feel I lost 2 to 3 years of advancing my course technology-wise because of this website, and it was awful. But then in the fall of 2009, our district started investigating other opportunities. I think they realized that this website really wasn't doing its purpose. We had actually gone backwards. So we had researched a lot of different LMSs, including Blackboard. And that summer of 2009, we had made investment to get on board with Blackboard. What we actually did is we joined a consortium called Learn 21, and they are out of Cincinnati, Ohio. They pool together, they might be up to 20 schools now in around Ohio that coordinate resources so that we can all take advantage of using Blackboard and even other things. And it's been very helpful. It has made a huge difference. Like Katie said earlier, I was part of a pioneer group that really tried to test out Blackboard, see what we liked, see what we didn't like, and those types of things. I actually remember one of our first meetings, and this is kind of interesting, we actually spent about an hour to 2 hours arguing what we should name the tabs on the left-hand side of our Blackboard screens. You know, contact, calendar, no, we can't have calendar. Should we have content? Should we have units? Should we have topic? We spent a ton of time. Now looking back, we realize how insignificant, the debate and the arguments were on what those words were. But that's really where we came from back in 2009. From that point on, it's just continued to grow and grow and grow, and really to the point that it has truly made all the difference in my course at the high school, but I think also it's making more differences for other teachers. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of using this stuff because I was part of the pioneer group. But each year, more and more teachers are incorporating more components of Blackboard into their courses. The students and the parents are willing to accept it. They understand the advances in technology, and they're willing to do that. So it's great we have a resource like Blackboard that we can present to the students and present to the parents so that it's very successful for them. Give you a little background information kind of my course, some of the things I do in it, and then obviously tying it into Blackboard. The way I teach my chemistry courses, and this is probably a little more for my honors than my AP, it is a student-driven course. Now I say it's sort of semi-self-paced, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. I'm also trying to move sort of to a mastery learning type of classroom. Now, what I mean by that is the semi-self-paced, I have a block of time that I tell the students, we will spend 2 weeks in Chapter 5. But that is really the only time restrictions I give them. I don't set daily deadlines doing X number of homework problems on this night or that night. I don't say you have to turn in this worksheet by this time. I basically say you have X amount of work to do. You have 2 weeks to do it. When you accomplish that work is truly up to you. Your pace, your time schedule, whatever situations that you need to do. The reason it's being semi-paced is I still can't logistically deal with multiple chapters in a chemistry class where I could have kids in 3 different chapters doing labs in 3 different chapters on various days. Same thing is handling, let's say, 3 different chapters and trying to juggle tests in 3 different chapters. So that's why, again, I call it semi-self-paced. Within that window of start to finish, they have the freedom to move. But we're all going to start on the same day. We're all going to finish on the same day. The only thing I do schedule in between those days are labs. Again, talking about juggling those labs, I'd have to keep track of, wait, which chemicals do I need for today, or which chemicals have I run out? And if I'm trying to do that for multiple labs, that's kind of difficult to do. So that's what I do keep scheduled a little bit. As far as some of the other things just in my class, I do try to incorporate as much blended learning philosophies as possible. I do try to do things where the kids can just log in, get the information they need, and move forward, in whatever situation they do. I also try to create some things where it's interactive, whether it's a discussion board, whether it's a journal, those types of things. Looking at my course, that's probably the one thing I would really, really like to do more, is to have it be more interactive with the students, more active participation, not so much static. And what I mean by static is, oh great, they can click on a link and get a PDF. They can click on a link and go to a website and watch a video. But I want it to be more active participation where they're communicating in feedback, and again, whether that's a discussion board or they're submitting things back to me. That's something I definitely want to incorporate more in my classes moving forward. The other thing I really, that I had an opportunity to do last summer, if any of you are familiar with Quality Matters, it is actually an international organization that you have opportunities to look at online course quality. And they have courses you can take, processes you can go through that really have you look in depth at your course, the way you lay things out, and things to think about to make your course as good as possible for your students. It was a great experience. Of course, way too much information for me to try to deal with at one time, but it's something I have on my list of things to do over the summer to revisit that and try to make my course a little bit better. Here's the most important thing as we kind of go into my actual classroom. Whatever you do, you've got to make sure your face-to-face time is valuable. Now, if you're a course that's an online school, or maybe you don't see the students face-to-face, what you're thinking about is when you have the kids' active attention. So again, if we're in a traditional high school and the kids are coming into your classroom for the next 40, 50 minutes, what you're going to do while they're sitting in front of you is the most important thing that you have to worry about. Those of you maybe in an online school or in a virtual school, whatever's synchronous, so whatever you're doing when you log on and they log on, that is the most important thing. That's what you really need to focus on first. all the other pieces sort of fall in line after that, and I can explain that more as we go. So my classroom has really exploded the last 2 years. Here's what I mean by that. I've had just perfect timing on a couple of other things that our school district has done that has allowed me to take my classroom and completely change it from what it was a couple of years ago. And there were really three pieces of information. Number one was Blackboard. Again, we've talked about it, and those of you that use it, it's a great tool for delivering information and collecting feedback. Number two, our district made a huge commitment to upgrading our wireless internet connections in our district. And then number three, we've created a policy for students to bring in their own devices, tablets, phones. Now, bringing in your own devices, you know, that's a whole other story that all schools have to deal with in terms of how do you manage that and things like that, and I'm sure there's lots of time that could be spent talking about that. But really, those three things allowed me to take my course to the next level. The other things that I talked about that we were going through is it took me a long time to figure out my end game. What I meant by that is I need to figure out how I want it to look in Blackboard, but also how I want to incorporate my flipped classroom into that, and making those two fit together. So I spent a lot of time sitting on my family room floor, long nights on Saturdays, Sundays, literally just playing and saying, okay, I'm going to put this here, and how would this look, and what would I do here, and if the kids saw this, would they like it looking that way, or would they like it looking some other way? And it truly depended upon, in some cases, maybe personal preference that I didn't know yet. But ultimately, it came down to, I really think, these four things. I had the technology now in terms of Blackboard and our wireless network. Number two, I felt the way I was starting to organize my material was becoming clear. And I had pieces of paper with flow charts and roadmaps. A kid will click here, and then they'll go here, and then they'll go there. That organization allowed it to be a better presentation to the students, in the point that they might actually like what they're seeing and become engaged with it. And then lastly, and this was maybe the most important piece, how am I going to hold the kids accountable for what I've put in Blackboard? And that's always going to be a constant struggle. When we don't see them in the classroom, it's tough to know what they're doing. So that was definitely something that I'm still working with this year and will continue to work with next year. But I think as you think about those things, if I really come back to those four things that made my course change into what it is. This is a question that those of you that are familiar with flipped classroom maybe always hear about. And, tell me about the videos. Is it about the videos? Well, the answer is actually no, it's not. And something I've shown in the past, which I won't take the time, those of you that are familiar with MTV, when it actually showed music videos, the very first video that MTV ever showed was Video Killed the Radio Star. Well, flipped videos are not going to kill the teacher. Teachers are still needed to facilitate. Teachers are still needed to give intervention. It is not going to replace teachers. What it's going to do is enhance the teaching and support the teaching. That's always interesting because a lot of people ask me, well, how do you make those videos? And I always redirect, well, hey, we'll talk about the videos a little bit later. Let's talk about something else first. And then from there, we move on. So talking about redirecting, here's a question that I would always ask somebody when they want to know more about flipped classroom. If you had a blank piece of paper, what would you do in class when you actually see your students, when you have their attention? What is the most important things that you would do? And these might be some of those things that you might list. Okay,
David?
yes, we can give instruction.
David?
Yes.
Hey, it's Katie. We're getting a little bit of background noise, so we're going to try to mute all of the participants, but we're probably going to need you to unmute yourself with *6 after we do that.
Okay, not a problem.
Can you see if you can mute participants in the WebEx? We're just going to pause for just a second. This is great.
No problem.
Okay. I think we're good now. And David, if you want to go ahead and hit *6, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me still, Katie?
Yep, you sound great, David. Thank you.
Okay, great, not a problem. So again, the question I would always ask teachers is, what, if you had the choice, what would you want to do during class when you see your students face-to-face? Would it be deliver instruction, practice things, apply things, create, discuss? This is how you truly want to organize a flipped classroom. Because when you see those students, you want to maximize that time that you see them face-to-face. This really isn't the time to do large group instruction. Teacher standing at the front, shoveling information to students. You can get a lot of distractions. Some students will raise their hand. They need something repeated. Other students will say, well, I don't understand that. Can we do it again? And the efficiency and maybe the effectiveness of that isn't as great. So instead, think about what can I do in small groups? Can there be remediation? Can I do some interventions? The class time is truly, if you walk around the class time, you can achieve one-to-one learning. You can't do one-to-one learning when you are standing in front of the class, and even if you're not lecturing, but maybe you're doing a group activity or you're doing a formative assessment. Everybody is doing that together. So you're trying to manage the entire class at the same time. But in a flipped class, what you can do is you can set that up where you literally are working individually with students because they might be at different places within the chapter or within the unit, whatever that may be. And so as we go through this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about, that class time and what's important. I always refer to Bloom's taxonomy a little bit here. So if we think of a traditional classroom, and again, when I say traditional, what I'm talking about is not a flipped classroom. I think in traditional, if we still truly do all lecture teaching as a teacher, that's kind of outdated. But if we think of this here, in class, we're trying to have kids remember some content, understand it, maybe apply it, and then maybe we're having them do things outside of class. Maybe they're analyzing something. Maybe they're creating something for some type of project. And so that's the way a lot of the courses tend to work. Well, what I try to do in my flipped classroom is the exact opposite. What I want them to do out of class is try to remember some of the basic stuff. Try to understand some of the basic stuff. Then, if they're understanding sort of, I'll use this phrase a lot, I want them to scratch the surface of a topic by themselves. So I teach chemistry. Maybe we're talking about acids and bases. I'm going to incorporate some stuff outside of class. Short little video, short little activity, and they're going to scratch the surface of that topic on their own. Then, as they come into class, we're going to work our way up that pyramid, and we're going to start to analyze in class. We're going to maybe start to create things in class because they did some of those scratching the surface things outside of the classroom. And we wouldn't be able to necessarily do that otherwise because I wouldn't know what they're creating, what they're evaluating, what they're analyzing, because they'd be doing that at home. A lot of times I'll say that, tell the kids, hey, I don't want to hold your hand every step of the learning process. So if you can do some things on your own to begin with, then you're going to get farther along through the process. And what this has really done for me, and I've tried to keep track of this, there is an interesting, if you're ever curious, those of you that are Seinfeld fans, it's a long video, but it's about 14 minutes. Different Seinfeld clips about Bloom's taxonomy. It starts out, goes through all the different ones and has a different subject or different clip. I believe the very first one, the remembering, is about the soup Nazi and getting soup. And then it works its way through some of the other ones. So it's a pretty funny clip. Here's how my course has really changed. And this is something I've kept track of as much as possible. Before I did a flipped classroom, I was in charge of the class. We all moved from step A to step B at the same time. Hey, we're going to go through section 1 together today and tomorrow. Wednesday we'll do a lab. Thursday and Friday we'll go through section 2 together. Well, so I was driving the class. We'd throw in labs there where we could, and then students would have a little bit of time to control what they're doing and when. Now, I've completely changed it. I have very little control. Now, if my principal to hear me say that, they wouldn't like it, but I have very little control of my class in terms of what is learned on a given day. The students drive the class most days. We still do labs, but I now am only going to take control of the class in situations where I feel it's necessary. So to give you an example, on any given day, I may not know what I'll be teaching that day because the students will be walking through the classroom. They're going to bring their own agendas, their own to-do lists to say, Mr. Hamman, I don't understand A, B, and C. So then I'm going to talk to those students about A, B, and C. Another couple students may come in and they say, well, I've got questions about D and X. Well, then I'll talk to those students about D and X. So they are coming in with their questions, their concerns, their interests based upon what they've already done on their own. They're not waiting for me to tell them what to do, what to learn, and when to learn it. They're doing that on their own, and then they're asking me to fill in the blanks or to give support. I try to tell them a lot, you need to make sure that when you see me, you're using me. I'm here now, use me. Ask questions. Ask for my help. I'm not going to be at your house when you do those things. Parents always ask the question, to sort of explain it in simple terms. And a lot of times I'll say, well, imagine I teach a topic in class, and they're like, oh, yeah, I kind of understand it. We do 1 or 2 examples in class, and then the kids go home. They get out their textbook. They do the first problem, not too bad. Do the second problem, not too bad. They get to the third problem, and they're like, I'm stuck. He didn't ask one like this in class. I don't know what to do. They pick up their book, they close their book, and they stop doing the work. I tell the parents I do the complete opposite. At home, they're going to watch a short little video. Again, my phrase from earlier, scratch the surface of the topic. Maybe do a couple practice problems or at least see the problems I did on the computer. Then they're going to come into class, work on problems, numbers 1 and 2, not a big deal. They get to number 3, they're stuck. Well, now instead of closing their book, they raise their hand, and I come over to their table and work through that problem. Now, that is an oversimplification of what it is, but that's the concept is when they get stuck deeper into a topic, I'm there to help through that. So what's really done is put the kids in control of the class. Now, I found it difficult, a little bit more difficult this year because I had a few more sophomores, and they're not quite used to being in control of their learning. It's not that they can't, but they just haven't developed those great time management skills. There are things like, well, Mr. Hamman, you don't teach. It's a common phrase that I get from some students. Or occasionally a parent will want to set up a meeting. They say, well, so-and-so Johnny comes home and says you really don't teach that much in class. Well, I don't teach in front of the class to all students. I'm truly walking around and in a one-to-one situation, having conversations, having intervention at whatever levels with each individual student. So a lot of times I'll ask that question, well, did I come around and answer a couple of questions that you specifically had that nobody else did? Like, oh yeah, you did do that. Well, it's a different type of teaching. It's more intervention than delivery of content. And that's something, as I show my course how I set it up, might be useful for those people that are wanting to do more in Blackboard. A funny phrase I always talk about in my class is, my class now is Swiss cheese. Oh, I guess my S is a little small there. Here's what I mean by that. I've moved so much, students are moving quicker through material and performing better that I've got now holes in the course. And what that means is I might be able to get through a chapter maybe a day quicker, or some students can maybe get through it a day or two quicker. So now there's these gaps, and because I don't let the students be completely self-paced, there are empty spots within that chapter. Maybe there's a particular day where the student is caught up, or maybe the student is working ahead, and there's this window of opportunity to do something. It's like a teachable moment that wasn't there before. So I kind of asked myself, what do I do to fill those holes? What do I do with that time? And here's some of the things that I need to develop more as I work through this, over the next year or two. Number one, could I teach just more topics in depth? Now that I've got this opportunity, are there certain topics I just don't cover very deep? I wish I could do more about this. Maybe I can fill some of those holes with those topics. Second thing, maybe I just am able to teach more chapters. I've never been able to talk about this topic. Well, now maybe I can. Another thing is maybe I can incorporate more differentiated instruction. Maybe I can just do more things, more activities, more labs, more experiments, more whatever that the students can interact with, the students can create, the students can do. What I'm sort of finding is my answer is really they could do all of those things. And so my goal for the next couple of years is to figure out the right balance of new material, more material in depth, and then more activities or interactions. And finding that right balance sort of maybe will help do that. All right, so I've been just kind of talking a lot here, and I really want to show you sort of the structure of my class and some of the things that I do for that to get it set up in a flipped classroom. Since we are now talking a little bit about the videos, I do have a YouTube channel that simply is Mr. H's Chem. And so if you're on YouTube, that's something you can find. And actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quick share my desktop so you guys can see what that is doing. And I will type in so here is my YouTube channel. And what I have here, this is where I put all the videos that I create. The majority of the videos I create using the SmartBoard software that we have at the district. You actually don't need a SmartBoard. I just use the software. There's now lots of applications that are either desktop applications, but also, iPad applications, other tablet applications where you could create a video using some type of presentation software, and you could then upload it to YouTube. So I have videos that I have for all my different chemistry topics. Some here are Honors Chem, some are AP Chem, some of them are divided by sections. You can see here 9.1, 9.2, 6.3, Part 1, 6.3, Part 2, and it just continues to go on and on and on. So these are all the videos unique to my course. And this is where I put them. This was really, I don't know if it was difficult. I was putting myself out there because I had to make this stuff public so I could find, so the students could find this information and I could link it to Blackboard. And once I felt comfortable with saying, okay, you know what, it's out there. Mr. H is Chem. People are going to see my videos. They're going to see the content I teach and those types of things. But it was really important because Blackboard has a great mashup tool, and I'll show you that in a little bit if you're not familiar with it. It makes the connecting of a YouTube video to your Blackboard course seamless. It's a great tool. Now, some of these videos I definitely need to start redoing. Some of them are very sterile. I've got a smart board. I'm going through the content. I'm flipping through slides, and I'm very neat and clean and to the point of my presentation. I probably need to just liven them up a little bit. But those of us as educators know that part of teaching a class is the delivery. We have kids in class, and we talk to kids, and we ask kids a question in the middle of our presentation. Here, it's just straight content. But I definitely want to do more, like I said, to make it a little more lively, not quite so sterile like I said before. And I'll show you how we can sort of link some of those things to go together. We'll come back to that here in a second. All right, last thing I'll talk to you about Flipped Classroom, because then we're going to jump into my course. If you're not familiar with some of the Flipped Classroom and Flipped Learning community and the people involved, I've got a little bit of information here that you can look at it and see. Two of the people that I've been very fortunate to follow them and get information from them have been John Bergman and Aaron Sams. They originally were two chemistry teachers in Colorado, which have now gone on to different places, but they truly started incorporating sort of this phenomenon and sort of coined the phrase and sort of taken on I guess more of a visual figurehead of some of this stuff. So the flippedlearning.org and the flippedclassroom.org are two websites where I get a lot of information, a lot of networking, a lot of resources, a lot of how-to, a lot of Q&A, just to help me become a better Flipped Classroom teacher. They do have one book out, which I have, and it's a small book. It's very good in terms of giving you some quick information. They have a second book that's coming out. The last thing that I'll just briefly mention here is if you've ever been on Twitter, they have a chat Monday nights at 8 p.m., and you simply type in the hashtag #FlippedClass, and you follow anybody that types in hashtag #FlippedClass. And there'll be a lot of Q&A, a lot of conversation. It's a great professional development opportunity. Maybe some of you have been involved in other Twitter chats, whether it's EdChat and different things, but I've learned a lot because it's not just chemistry teachers. It is elementary teachers, English teachers, math teachers. It's a great way to learn a little bit more about some of that Flipped Classroom stuff. All right, so enough about Flipped Classroom. Let's talk a little Blackboard. What I have here to show you just some simple screenshots of what we're going to talk about next, and then we will actually go to my Blackboard course and look at some of those things. So my first screenshot, this is the very first page that I send kids to when I'm in Blackboard. I will change this page probably after about the second week of school. Right now it simply says Intro to HChem, and on this page I have a couple things. Number one, an introduction to who I am. So I might have a short little video, who's Mr. Hamman and what's honors chemistry. Number two, I'm going to have a short little video about the flipped classroom. And that video is really important because it can tell not only kids what to expect, but it can also tell parents, what is this flipped classroom thing that you're talking about? And then a lot of times I have a third video where it talks about introducing Blackboard. Now, I think over time that introduction to Blackboard video will probably go away because we're incorporating this course or Blackboard into our middle schools, and our freshmen are getting it. So by the time I see them, they're starting to already have used Blackboard. But this gives them a short little snippet of insight to my class. The other thing I do is I actually have them do some different tasks. I actually create a scavenger hunt, and I tell them to go into my Blackboard course and find different things. Go to, find when we'll be in Chapter 9. So we need to go through the calendar and find, okay, when does he think we'll be in Chapter 9? I might say, hey, what's the first lab we're going to do in Chapter 12? So they have to go through the course and hunt for some of those things. And that navigation piece hopefully gives them a little bit of a beginning introduction to the orientation of the way the class is structured. That was one thing that over time that I've, been in different webinars and things, that the kids need to know where things are at before they can even use them. So anything you can do to help them see more, learn more, before they actually get to the chemistry, that can be very helpful to them, because if they don't even know where to look for things, then they're not going to be able to understand the chemistry. A common phrase I always tell parents, we use so much electronics, I'm not going to grade them on does their technology work or not work. I'm grading on them on their chemistry knowledge. But how we communicate that knowledge is different. In the old days, we would communicate chemistry on pencil and paper. Well, then chemistry was on computers. We would type things. Well, now we're going to communicate our chemistry through Blackboard or through whatever else. So chemistry is still chemistry. It's just how we're going to communicate what we know. So that's sort of my first one. Again, this is something for the first 2 weeks, just for everybody to understand what's there. A second link I have are course documents. This is just simply syllabus, expectations, policies, textbook link, whatever basic stuff that a student might use at the beginning of the year or throughout the entire school year. The next one that I have, and again, I will show you these all live here in a little bit, I have a tab that's called Course Timeline. And this has two things. One, it is just an overview of the entire year, where we think we'll be in different weeks of the year. And then I also have a simple week-by-week lesson plan. We all usually have to turn in lesson plans to our administration. So a person can just click on a link and say, okay, from April 7th to April 14th, where are we going to be? And they can simply see what that information is. I use this, but I'm probably going to get away from this because I'm going to start to use the calendar more, that you'll see in a little bit. Course topics and units. This is the heart of the course. This is where all my content is. We're going to talk about Chapter 7, chemical nomenclature. Chapter 8, writing reactions. This is where everything will be. Notes, homework, videos, worksheets. That's where I put the meat and potatoes. The calendar, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am using this more and more. I'll be honest, it's getting better and better to use through Blackboard. So a lot of times I'll put assignments or links, I'll put due dates to them. Next thing you know, they show up on the calendar. And we can obviously set up notifications and things like that. The last one that we'll talk about is I do use Blackboard Collaborate for some review sessions, whether it's exam review or for my AP chemistry, I'll do some summer review stuff. And a lot of times I will go back and we'll talk about things and we can go through and have discussions without actually having to come to the school. I love this. This is great because I can have as many kids as possible Now, Google Hangout is going to be definitely competition from that because we can jump in small groups. But Collaborate is so much better because we can incorporate it within Blackboard. Kids can have access to it, and I can do so much more, engaging the students with that stuff. All right, so what I want to do now is actually show you my Blackboard course and kind of some of those things that we've just briefly talked about, and kind of, and then maybe answer some questions that people start to have. All right, so I'm going to share my desktop here again. All right, so what you have, and I'm going to come over here to, I've got a couple different classes because I'm merging things and changing things and moving them around. So right now here you would see I am on my Intro to Honors Chemistry tab on the left-hand side here. So you can see I have simply just a contacts link, phone number, email. I have a YouTube video that is linked to the Introduction to Blackboard. So what is Blackboard actually doing for us, and how do I use it in my classroom? Then I've created a survey in which they have to go on a scavenger hunt. So this little video they watch, I'm going to tell them to go find 2 or 3 different things. And if you notice here, I do use some adaptive release. So I said, okay, I've watched the video. Now there's a little scavenger hunt. And so I asked the question, where is this OSU chemistry tutorial located? What's the title of the first lab in Chapter 9? What month will we cover Chapter 12? So what that's allowing them to do is by coming back here, I've introduced Blackboard. I've talked a little bit about what these tabs mean. I've given them some things to look for. So now what they're going to do is they're going to spend some time finding these things. And hopefully they become a little familiar with these different areas. I don't expect them to be experts, but it gives them some comfortable, maybe a little comfort in finding some of those things. Then I have another video about my flipped classroom. And again, talking very briefly about what it is, what I plan on doing. I really need to elaborate on this more because I think a lot of times what I tell the kids and what the kids see and hear doesn't always get translated well to parents. I'm definitely going to do something more that engages parents on this, hoping that if they do see this, it maybe clears up some questions for them without it becoming a bigger issue down the road. Maybe it's a discussion board where they can ask, well, Mr. Hamman, I'm curious about this, or how do you do that? And that can help them understand a little bit more about how I do the flipped classroom. I really think this page right here, if you're doing something that's blended, or if you're just a traditional classroom using Blackboard, this intro tab is really important because you can help explain a lot of things ahead of time that you can maybe then avoid headaches down the road. Again, you don't expect everybody to understand everything at the beginning, but if this can help you kind of get some things off and running in the beginning of the school year, then things will be a little smoother. The second one I briefly mentioned, course documents. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I do use a lot of adaptive release for this. So course documents, they've got a syllabus, they've got to open it, they've got to read it, they're going to mark it reviewed. Next thing you know, they've got a syllabus acknowledgement. So they're going to click on this, and what happens is it's going to open up to a survey, they type in their information, and this serves their purpose as verification that they've turned in their survey or their syllabus. So again, I have them do all this information. And again, I'll just click all the mark reviewed, and I have them go through some different things. I have them go through a safety contract, an acknowledgement for that, some equipment breakage. And so kids, by doing this, they now see how not all the content will show up until they do some things. This goes back to that accountability piece. I'm not going to just give you all the stuff. You guys have to do some work, have to prove that you're working through those things. And by doing A, B, and C, now you'll have access to D, E, and F. So I am trying to force their pacing so that they don't fall behind a little bit. Course timeline, again, I just simply have just a simple Excel spreadsheet here that I posted. What dates, what chapter, what quarter, nothing too exciting there. And then just simple PDF links to, okay, what are we going to do March 24th to 28th? I am getting away from this because, I'll just flip to the calendar right now, I am using the calendar more than Blackboard. So whether it is chapters, maybe there's a certain chapter here, some online homeworks, maybe I'm going to have another worksheet, and I can do a lot more in this. So I'm definitely going to be transitioning away from maybe this week-by-week PDF link to more of the calendars. The one I want to spend the most time on is then this course topics and units, and this is where I have, like I said, all the content. So I can go through here. Let's say I pick chapter 9. So I go through chapter 9, which for us it's stoichiometry. It's chemistry calculations that we spend a lot of time on. So what I have is I'll have an outline. So this is the different information, the different activities that we will do in the chapter. Homework assignments, labs will do, those types of things, just a simple PDF. Then I have my chapters organized by sections. So everything associated with section 1 is inside this folder. So I have the notes that I have created on this topic. I have a video that I created, a 6-minute video introducing this section on YouTube that they can click here and then watch. And again, you just simply click on it and go. I've got a POGO activity, which is an inquiry-based learning activity where they can click on this and work through a worksheet. I also have an article on airbags. Some of these gaffes, these goals I need to clean up because I was moving stuff around and some extra stuff got copied. So yes, we're not technically talking about gas laws, but we have that there. Then what I can do is go into another section, and you're going to see the same thing. The notes for a particular section, maybe a video. Now here's what I really like is now I can incorporate some simulations. I've embedded a simulation about a chemistry topic. So kids can click on this, and now they're going to interact with a survey, or I'm sorry, a simulation. Maybe they're going to do something about a reaction, and they're trying to do different things that they can manipulate. And it's right within Blackboard. I also will have online homeworks that they will do. So I could be within a chapter, and maybe I have them do some type of an online homework quiz. And right here that would be, and this is just one I've created in Blackboard. So as I'm showing them this information, I'm really wanting them to focus on, all right, here's everything that you need to do for this particular section. Notes, video, worksheet, an activity, maybe an article, and then ultimately a, maybe some type of a quick assessment. Here's the way I use Blackboard. I put more stuff on Blackboard than most kids will use. The way I think of it is this way is if I need a kid to do something extra, some type of extra intervention, some type of extra remediation, I can simply say, hey, on Blackboard, I've got this, and I can point those kids to that. Somebody else I might have a different issue with. I say, well, you know what? I've got these couple things on Blackboard. This one thing might work the best for you. There is no way I would expect a kid to go through everything I have on Blackboard. They would just be overwhelmed. But what I can do is then differentiate what they do based upon my conversations, my one-to-one interactions that I have with those students. So you know what, this activity might be best for you. Somebody else, I might be sitting right next to that student. I said, you know what, this is going to be better for you than that one. And then again, that's where I get that individualized instruction. resources, and I'll just quickly go through these. This could be anything else, some tutorials, some extra places kids can go. And then the last one I did mention, Blackboard Collaborate. So what I have here is, this is the recording. This second entry here is actually a Blackboard Collaborate recording of the semester exam review I did back in December. So just like you guys are going to get a recording for today's webinar, I created one so if a kid couldn't attend the session, they could then access that video, and they could see the questions that were asked, they could see the examples that we did, and any other information that was useful. All right, so let me turn this back off here and come back. As far as things that what would I want to change next? Well, I did briefly mention earlier, I hope to incorporate more things that are interactive. Students have to give me feedback in Blackboard. Number two, I do want to incorporate more adaptive release where I can maybe specialize content. Certain kids may have access to A, B, and C. Other kids need to do A, B, C, D, E, and F. And as they do those things, then I can specialize maybe some of those resources, maybe some of those extra activities that students can do. It's obviously going to take a lot of extra work to do a lot of those things, but if I can do that, by making it more individualized, I think the kids will be more successful. In terms of, how successful are they? That's something I'm actually working with right now in some of my data. My averages, and again, this is without being extremely scientific because I'm still working through that. I don't know if I'm necessarily getting, my highest level students aren't getting higher. But what I'm seeing is I'm seeing my bottom rise up and I'm seeing my middle rise up. So everything is trending higher. Kids aren't scoring higher, the highest kids aren't scoring higher than the other kids from other years because those kids were still just smart and they're great chemistry students. But I'm seeing a greater volume, a greater frequency of higher scores, than I would have seen in previous years. And that's definitely something I'm going to kind of track and that I will probably even hope to incorporate in my Blackboard World session that I'll be doing later this summer. So those, like I said, those are some of my things that I hope to change and adjust for next year to kind of make my course better. I also am always asking students, what do you like, what do you not like? I've given surveys a couple times a year. Some of it is just about displaying things. Hey, do you like how this is displayed or do you not like how this is displayed? And I even ask the tough questions about my flipped classroom. Hey, what do you like about this? What do you not like about it? What would you like changed? And that's the only way I'm going to ever get better, to truly have them tell me. They won't want to tell me face-to-face, so I create, anonymous surveys and things like that. But I want that feedback. And so those are the things that I'm going through now to say, all right, you know what? Boy, I didn't realize it, but these kids really don't like this and this. And then sometimes say, oh, you know what? They really do like some other part, so I'm going to make sure I incorporate that more. And by continue to evolve, I hope to do more of those things, next year and beyond. So I guess kind of going through stuff there, that's sort of what I had. I don't know if people have some questions, or Katie or Colleen, anything we can sort of add to that. Like I said, I really appreciate the time that everybody's taken to attend this session. I will put up just real quick here if somebody didn't get it, and then Katie can take control of it. There is my email address, and I am on Twitter. I don't get on it as much as I want because we're always grading papers or doing other things, but that's another way. It's, like I said, it's a great resource to access information. It's great professional development, that you can have instantaneously. So I guess really that's what I have at this time. And, Katie, I'll give it back to you. And then, like I said, take any questions that people might have.
Great. Thank you so much, David. This has been wonderful. Let's see. Let's go to the slide where you had your Twitter account listed. What slide was that,
Oh, yeah.
David?
That was back like on, might have been my first one, so it might have been like 5 or, yeah, there it is.
Here? Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's go on that while we open. Right now there aren't any questions in the chat, but we've got a lot of participants in the room. I want to encourage everyone in chat, select all participants and paste, put your question in, or use the official Q&A, either one. There have already been requests for getting an electronic copy of the presentation. And so I did want to let everyone know that for all the series, we record them, we send out the link to the recording, and we publish them in the online professional learning community. So you'll get an email with that in a couple days, as well as a PDF of the presentation. So I'd like to encourage participants to pose questions in the chat, but this has been a tremendous presentation, David.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I did get, might have one here. A couple people just asked about other teachers, so I did get a couple of private chats here on a couple things, so I will definitely work through a couple of those. But yeah, I'm more than happy to stick on if something else came up here from there too. And if not, like I said, everybody, there's my contact information.
Are there any questions that you want to address to the whole group, or are they more for individuals, Steve?
No, it's just asking for maybe a different content if anybody's using it maybe in a math class or things like that. So just little things like that I can, sort of housekeeping things I can definitely work through. So.
Sure. Well, let me jump ahead to a couple of the closing items, so we'll see.
Sure, absolutely.
At the end of the hour. But hopefully we'll get some questions in the chat here before we close out. But I do want to remind everyone that David will be on a panel at Blackboard World this summer regarding the flipped classroom. And so that panel, David is serving on it as a science teacher. We have Larry Fallon from Arlington Public Schools, who presented a few weeks ago on professional development in the flipped classroom. And then we have a music teacher who flips her classroom. So a little variety there. And we may even have an elementary teacher who flips her classroom as well. But a few different examples of different types of flipping will be represented on that panel. So I want to encourage everyone to consider attending Blackboard World this summer. It's a great teaching and learning conference, and we've built a really great K-12 schedule this year. So very excited to have David on one of those panels. So there's a kindergarten teacher in the room, David, and she's asking, do you have any information on early childhood uses? And I'll go ahead and post some links in the chat for her. But David, do you have any response for use?
That's a great question, because I think one of your previous bits, oh gosh, it might have been maybe back in May, in terms of using it differently. A lot of times, and I think our district is maybe like for a kindergarten, first, second, third grader, a lot of times maybe that could be more even for the parent to go to, in terms of maybe a quick little video on here's the math we're doing in third and fourth grade. And a lot of times maybe a parent would kind of like to know what they're doing. You know, a lot of times we get to the point where our kids get older and we get to the point where we realize, hey, you know what, they're getting past where we ever were in high school. And so a lot of times parents like a quick little short information on, hey, what are they doing in this class? So that could sort of keep them informed as what they're doing. It's kind of like these, you know, these videos of, hey, what are we doing in class this week, or what are we doing in class in this unit? So I think some in the elementary will use it a lot of times to have parents as the audience in some cases. It also could be maybe students with absences, where kids are going to be out, and it can be sort of a second layer of support. I tend to do mine, a lot of times I'll use the phrase that's preloading. I use these videos to introduce a topic and then sort of from there, we blow out into the different ways that we would go. But you could definitely use Flipped Classroom and Blackboard to be more of a follow-up, a remediation. You introduce something in class, and now you've created follow-up links and follow-up videos, whether it's for the student or the parent. And so I think that can be useful in some cases.
I actually just posted links to 2 videos that we just made public today, actually, that address that question from the kindergarten teacher. Lawrence Public Schools, not the only district in the U.S. doing blended with K through 12, but they've got a great story, especially in the kindergarten through 5th grade elementary classroom. So just shared video links for a K-5 specialty video on how they're using Blackboard in the elementary classroom, as well as their district-wide implementation in the second video. But even kindergarten teachers are doing flipped lessons in Blackboard at Lawrence. We will have another multimedia page that's out very soon where you can download the full case study. But please do check out those links if you've joined the session today.
Great.
Any other questions? Let's see. Colleen posed that question to me. I'm trying to see if there are any other private questions there. But those are some good examples. Let me go ahead and move to the last one because we know we're just slightly past time. David,
Katie.
Yes.
Katie, I just sent you one other question that came into the host. Is there any research or information regarding special education classes in the flipped classroom?
I know there's information about special education classes in the Lawrence case study itself. Right now there's not a place on the web to click to. So Colleen, could you capture that name so I can send, and the kindergarten teacher's name, so I can send the case study directly to them because the page to download it is not quite ready. I send the links to the videos because those are live today, but I'll send the case study directly to them. I wouldn't call it research on special education in the flipped classroom, but then I'm going to turn that question to David if you have any information on that. You shared sources earlier in the presentation.
Not as far as research or case studies. I think, again, maybe in the case of special ed, you could incorporate that stuff in follow-up and remediation, you know, in terms of an extra layer of support, maybe after content has been introduced for kids. We try to do that a little bit in some of our courses. So I think anytime there could be extra layers of support, that can't be a bad thing. But yeah, as far as anything specific, no, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay. And you mentioned the chat, the flipped classroom chat on Twitter. Has that topic ever come up there, David?
You know what? It probably has. It just depends. A lot of times, and even the one website, they can go to those and can find an archive of that. It probably has in terms of how they incorporate it, maybe in their classrooms, what works, what doesn't work. And in terms of those individual situations and their experiences and how they use it.
Okay, so just
I think I
was going to say, just flip back to your page with the resources, the Flipped Learning.
Yeah. So I think that the 2 websites are good places for networking, getting information, and going from there. I think that's the one thing is there's no one perfect, this is what Flipped Classroom is. You truly make it what your course is, what your students are, your style of teaching, and so you know it's not something you can always put in a box, but it's great to see what other people are doing and what their experiences are.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure if there is research in that area or resources, other resources at the elementary level, those would probably be great places to start in finding that, certainly. So very good. I know we're about 10 or 11 minutes past our time today, so I wanted to thank David for a great presentation, lots of great information, and a wonderful conclusion to the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series spring session. So thanks to everyone for participating in today's session. We're beginning to start looking at lining up sessions for our fall series. So again, please let us know if you're interested in presenting in the fall series or you have ideas for topics you'd like to see us address in sessions. Email me at katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. You'll receive this recording and the presentation slides in 2 or 3 days by email, and you'll receive an invitation to participate in the online PLC through course sites designed to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So please look for it, accept the invitation, and thank you so much for participating today. David, thanks for a great presentation.
Oh, thank you, Katie. I enjoyed it.